when you're holding an asana, asana means seat, right? You know, it's the seat for your focus. And if your focus is deep enough, you'll find meditation. So each posture you're attempting to, focus. And we use a technique in our practice, Ashtanga. We point our eyes in a certain direction, fix our gaze, and then we do this controlled, regulated breath. Actually, that can become a seat for meditation. The same way, in some other traditions, you might just sit in lotus, right? And when you're sitting in lotus or any asana, and you're trying to really focus, then you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to sort of hold the conditions of this pose. So say it's lotus pose. I'm going to get into lotus pose, and I'm going to sit here, and I'm going to focus. And that means, if I'm focusing, that I'm going to keep my attention one-pointed. And so anything that's happening outside of that, anything that wants to pull me off that point, I'm going to ignore it. It's a distraction, right? And you're sitting in, say it's lotus, you decide you're going to meditate for 15 minutes. I'm not going to move. I'm going to stay there. And then suddenly, there's a fly, right? And the fly's buzzing around, and the fly lands on your nose, and you do that. You wipe it off. Okay, well, that makes sense, right? There was a fly in your nose. What if it crawled up your nose? That would be terrible. But you failed in your original objective of sitting completely still. That was a distraction. It's obvious in that position when you're sitting there like that, cross-legged, sitting in lotus, very typical meditation pose. But that posture, that has the exact same intent as any of the asanas that we're doing in the practice. The thing about the asanas in our sadhana, in our practice, is that we only hold them for 5 breaths or 8 breaths or 10 or 15. We don't hold them for those long durations. And because we're doing that, it can be a lot easier to let the distractions in, right? You've got a lot more opportunities. You jump back, you go to chaturanga, you go to upward dog, you reach over, you dab your face, you go back down, you go back to downward dog. Well, you dabbed your face because you were sweaty and there was sweat around your eyes, it was terrible, couldn't focus, right? But really, in a way, that's the exact same thing as moving the fly away from your nose. The idea of the vinyasa is it's setting conditions, parameters, that you're supposed to operate within as you transition, as you move. Right? So it's these rules, it's the same way, it's a structure for movement. It's almost like a tunnel. Right? That's what the practice is like. It should take away all of your options. So there's no creativity in what you're doing. Sometimes that sounds terrible, right? That doesn't sound very nice. Oh, great, I'm going to go into a tunnel and not be creative for an hour and a half or something. But the reason that we do that is so that there's an opportunity for your mind to quiet down. You don't get to make any decisions. You don't think, okay, well I did that pose last time, what am I going to do next time? What comes next? You don't do that because there's a fixed sequence of postures. And you're like, okay, well, I know I have to do that pose, but how am I going to get into it? That's not an option. You're told exactly how you're going to get into it. You're given a cue, sapta, inhale, jump through, cross the legs, sit down, get set up, ashta, exhale, fold in. You're even told where your eyes should be while you're doing that. Everything's kind of determined for you. But the beauty of it is that just trying to follow it makes it really obvious when you're not following. You wouldn't have been aware of the distraction unless you were trying to stay on that line, unless you had set that intention ahead of time. And so whether we can achieve it or not, attempting to follow the vinyasa is a technique for focusing. So it's a bridge for our attention, or a tunnel that kills creativity. I don't know which sounds better, I'm not sure. you.